All right, families, thank you for joining me remotely for the State of the School address. I'm filming this on a Thursday, so it's a couple days after First Night Fremont, but I'll cover the same material that I did that night. In any event, welcome to the 2018-19 school year. And I told my staff that we've honestly had the best start since I began here. I'm David Alex, serving as principal. It's my third year here at Fremont, fifth year as a principal, and actually 10th year in administration. It goes by pretty quickly. But nevertheless, our mission at Fremont is to serve every child every day, not just academically, socially, emotionally, artistically, physically. When we say all means all, that means all children, whether or not they are on grade level, below grade level, whether or not they're gifted and talented, whether or not they may be one of our children we're privileged to serve in our autism rooms. All means all. And we'll get into that a little bit more today about how it drives our philosophy and how it defines who we are as a school. So, Fremont. So, just wanted to give you some updates about some staffing. Earlier this summer, I got a phone call from Jeannie Richardson, who said that her greatest desire in life is to serve the highest of highest need high school students at Fletcher Miller High School. And so, sure enough, the principal over there called me and offered her a position, and I couldn't get in her way. But we were fortunate to find a really strong ASD center teacher. It's Julie Diabetes, who comes to us from Mortonson Elementary in a very similar role. Earlier in the spring, we hired an ASD primary teacher, Burke Lurson. She comes to us from DPS and is very excited to get started. Additionally, we have two music teachers sharing the position that Sue Ross did on her own the last couple of years. We have Christine, who we share with Stober, as well as Amanda Lobiger, who we share with Peck. Also, I got a phone call from Mr. Westall in August saying that he found a middle school position very close to his house. And I understand that they just had a baby, and it was hard for him to kind of go back and forth. So I said, yes, you may definitely take that position. But we're very fortunate to hire Mr. McBride. Jason McBride's a 2007 Arvada West graduate, and he's one of the assistant football coaches over there. So some of you with older children might have him or have met him before. A couple of months ago, the Board of Education approved 8 social emotional learning specialists throughout the district. And I thought there was no way we were part of that pilot program. There's no chance Fremont would be on some list to receive one of those. Sure enough, on field day, I got a phone call saying that yes, we want to offer you a half-time social emotional specialist. So that would be Rhonda Flath. She comes to us from Slater Elementary in Lakewood, and we share her with Thompson Elementary for half the week. Additionally, Mrs. Perico called me in July saying that it was too hard for her to manage 3 children under 3 years of age with childcare on a half-time teacher salary. So she can't do it anymore, so she did resign. So Mrs. Silverstone will just do the whole part of the job share. Previously, both her and Mrs. Perico shared it. Now it'll just be Mrs. Silverstone, in addition to Mrs. Prestine in the other class. And last but not least, we have a new ESL tutor. Laura Martinez comes to us from DPS, where she had taught in a bilingual classroom for about the last 15 years. So we're very excited to have her. So a couple of things about by the numbers. Again, this year we'll have no multi-age classrooms. We're one of the few schools in the Arvada West area where there are no grade level splits. And I'll show you some data that supports the move to do that. Yes, we're investing in people. Yes, we've had to say no to some other things, but it's the right move. Additionally, 95% of our kids last year were at or above benchmark on Kinder Dibbles. I looked at Mrs. Rosa's class, I looked at Mrs. Danborn's class, and the data was actually identical. So really, really fantastic. We're preparing our younger students with those foundational skills. Furthermore, we had double-digit gains on CMAS science last year. And a lot of that had to do, I think, with the STEM fair that we had. It was kind of like the science fair. Kids were able to articulate their experiments, come up with some reasoning behind their claims. It was a really great science fair, and that transferred to the state assessment. So, of course, that's only assessed in 5th grade, but of course we teach science, kindergarten, all the way through 5th grade. So it's building up every year. And then the last 2 years since I've been here, we've had double-digit gains on English language arts on CMAS. So, speaking of which, when I said that we don't have split classrooms, there's a reason why we don't have split classrooms, and this is the great, great reason. When we had a split classroom, you could see that the performance on the state assessment wasn't all that high. I can't give you the exact numbers since the data is still embargoed. It's not available for the public. But I stood in front of you 2 years ago and I said, effective immediately, we'll go back to 2 5th grades and 2 6th grades. And there was a lot of cheering in the room. A lot of people were really happy about that. But we had to make great sacrifices as a staff. Like, we did not have an instructional coach that first year. My teachers had to figure it out on their own. but they did it, and they came through. So you can see the gains we've had the last 2 years without the split, with having one fifth grade, or two classes of fifth grade and 2 classes of sixth grade, not mixing the 2 age levels together. You can see that we're sending that percentage of students off to middle school more prepared than we ever have before. So that's the great news in terms of our performance. This is state data. This is not data that I made up. It's really, really strong. So again, that's on the English language arts component of the CMAS assessment. So, as I mentioned earlier, our kindergarten DIBELS is at 95%. DIBELS is an assessment that we give from kindergarten all the way to 3rd grade, again, just measuring the foundational literacy skills. And almost 90% of our kids are now at or above benchmark that do DIBELS. And that's important because within the Jeffco generations, vision, there's some metrics in there. And then one of the metrics is that 90% of our students will be at or above benchmark by the end of 3rd grade. So you can see that we're very, very close to that. Enrollment change without 6th grade. District told me to prepare for the worst case scenario. You know, I had planned for 210 students, and as of today, we're right around 230. And yes, this may fluctuate here and there. Some students move in, some students move out. We don't always find out until really the first week in October. But we're sitting a lot closer to 230 than we are 210, and that gives us a great deal of financial flexibility, more than ever before. So, next up, an initiative we're doing is a one-to-one technology initiative for the intermediate grades, and it's like 95% likely we'll also be offering this to grade 2. And teachers will be talking about this over the next couple of weeks. There's a contract that's out there that we want students to sign, and basically the philosophy is, you broke it, you bought it. So we want students to be ownership for anything, whether it's a textbook, whether it's a Chromebook, whether it's their own materials, but they can handle this. So that's kind of our one-to-one tech, initiative. Now, are we going to be perfect by the end of the year? Probably not. But again, it's just kind of a trial year. We're trying to figure this out as we go. But we're joining the 21st century with some technology. Also, handbook editions. I put this in the handbook last year. If you want your child to use social media of some kind, they really shouldn't, because it's against this Children's Online Privacy Protection Rule. It's a federal rule that any child under 13 years of old should not be using Facebook, Musical.ly, Snapchat, or anything like that. If you want your child to use that, that's fine, but the school will not spend any time mediating disputes that might come across through social media. Give them a break. They'll have a chance to do that for the rest of their lives from age 13 onward. And I promise you that not a single student is older than the age of 13. I think we might have one 12-year-old, that he might turn 12 like the last week of school. So we don't have any 13-year-olds here. That being said, the most dangerous of these websites is this Musical.ly. If you want to be frightened as a parent, go ahead and Google Musical.ly, the Boolean operator, and Medium. It's a magazine article that's out there that scared me to death as a parent. So be very, very cautious if your child is using this website or this social media site. It's extremely dangerous. Next, we no longer have a curriculum night here at Fremont. We had one 2 years ago, and maybe only about 10% of the families showed up. So we've stepped away from that, but fortunately Jeffco does provide a way for you to access the curriculum from kindergarten actually all the way to 9th grade. So you can look at the planning and pacing guides for math, for reading, for writing, for social studies and science, and that's a way for you to aid your child at home and kind of figure out what's kind of going on in the classroom. Now granted, I allow my teachers some freedom, so don't be calling them if they're a week early or a week late in terms of starting a unit. They may have switched a unit around. I give them the flexibility to do that. I give them the freedom of doing that. And we can talk more about that if you want. But yes, the curriculum is now online, accessible by the public. Next, very, very important for you to mark your calendar on this. The big thing is, it says in the district calendar that September 21st, November 2nd, February 15th, March 15th, and April 26th are early release days. For Fremont, for every elementary school in the Arvada West area, every elementary school in the Arvada area, every elementary school in Alameda Day, those are full release days. So your students don't come at all. And the main reason for that goes back to our mission statement, that all means all. How these work is that they're designed so that we can have building level professional learning, learning new instructional strategies to meet the needs of students. But the problem is, our staff that work with our students with autism always get hauled off to the district office for mandatory ASD training. So they never have that building level professional learning. So what that's saying is, it's okay for the children with autism to not benefit from those instructional strategies, and that's not okay with me. That's not okay with the community. So that being said, we'll do our building level learning in the morning, and they can go off to their mandatory training in the afternoon. So with that being said, you'll want to note on your calendar that yes, the students do not report to school on these days. There is one more early release day, the last day of school in May. I can't remember exactly when that is. And that will remain early release, so that's not changing. But these are now full release days. The whole district is going to this model starting next year, but just some of the regions are going to the model now, including our own. All right, so before school clubs, of course, we'll continue with our running club, a very popular club, 7:15 to 7:45, Tuesdays and Thursdays, starting after Labor Day. We'll have our school store and our library assistants like we always do. But I do want to introduce a couple of more after-school clubs. The first one is Bricks for Kids. Bricks for Kids is a Lego STEM program where they work with engines, that they build a lot of Legos, and it's designed for kindergarten through 3rd grade. Now, if you have a 4th or 5th grader, they really want to do it, they're not going to discriminate. They'll invite all students to that. But it's just in terms of the level of instruction. Some are more picture heavy, some are more text heavy. But they'll be here on Mondays from September 10th to October 15th. And you can sign up through my weekly news, or we have some information in the front office. Secondly, we have Sticky Fingers Cooking. Sticky Fingers Cooking is the most popular club among Jeffco elementary schools and DPS schools. So students are actually kind of becoming chefs. They plan a menu, and then they do some really exotic cooking. I don't know about you, and I don't know about my staff, but I'm definitely going to be walking by the art room around 3:30 p.m. on Tuesdays because it's going to smell so good, and I'm going to want to get a little snack. So that's going on Tuesdays. And on Thursdays, we have Talk to the Camera. I take my kids to the Apex Center all the time or to appointments, and there's this magazine called Colorado Parent. Within Colorado Parent, this Talk to the Camera was voted #1 in terms of movie making, in terms of just engagement. It's a very, very popular class. So kids can make YouTube movies, they can learn about all kinds of stuff. So Talk to the Camera is going to be in the music room on Thursdays for kindergarten through 5th grade. Next up, so what is my expectations? I took a trip to Kenya over the summer, and it was a life-changing trip. I had a milestone birthday, and I had to do it, so that's me hanging out in the equator. But what you can expect from me, as some of you know this, is I do have a high degree of visibility. I love being the first adult to greet your child as they come through the door, and the last adult they see as they leave, as they give them back to you. I'm going to continue doing that. Something else is I respect the professionalism of my teachers, and I'm solutions-based. If you have an issue, let's talk. I think we can usually come up with some kind of solution. I joke with my staff that 6 out of 10 of my ideas are usually pretty good. They're okay. 3, you can kind of go either way, and 1's a terrible idea. So again, we need to filter out some of those terrible ideas, but for the most part, I have ideas that kind of work most of the time. And also, I'm not going to respond as quickly to off-hours messages this year. I've been working really too hard the last 2 years. So if you send me an email about 11:55 p.m. at night, you're probably not going to get a response until the next morning. If you've not done so already, you should opt in to the Jeffco Connect. When you do Jeffco Connect, there's certainly opt-ins and opt-outs. If you want to get my newsletter, I send this out around 5:05 p.m. on Thursdays, just kind of celebrate what went on during the week with pictures, and then at the end it's upcoming events about how you can be involved. I send it out on Thursdays because I assume families will have a chance to sit down between Thursday evening and Sunday evening, kind of plan out the next week. But if you don't want it, it's no skin off my back, but it's going to be out there for you. And my teachers are really good at keeping their websites up to date in their newsletters too, but this is just something that you can hear from me. All right, so this year we'll continue our literacy focus like we did last year. If the students don't have homework every night, have them read. They need to be reading all of the time. The more at-bats they get with books, the better readers they become. And also we'll continue using this RACE method of systemic response. Students are restating the question, they're answering the question, they're citing evidence, and they're explaining. So you'll see that system-wide. Just like it was last year, we'll continue to push that this year. Social emotional learning, like I said, we're part of this grant. We did bring Rhonda Flath in to serve as our social emotional learning specialist. She's coaching teachers to integrate this curriculum called Random Acts of Kindness into their morning meeting. Random Acts of Kindness is a research-based curriculum, and then it's basically teaching kids to be kind to one another. One of our best days last year was the Day Without Hate. How great would it be to have a whole year without hate, to have a whole year where kids are being kind to their classmates and kind to the classmates above them and below them. we'll be the kindest school in the whole system. So, something else, budget info. Of course, we always have a tight budget. Now, even though our enrollment's pretty decent this year, our budget's probably is the best it's going to be, unless certain things happen. I know each of the grade levels has certain class fees. Please pay those if you haven't done so. Like, we use those for subscriptions, for math expressions, for consumables, for printer cartridges, for paper, for that kind of stuff. So it's very, very important that we do receive those student fees as soon as possible. Next up, we always need some volunteers. I mean, Crystal Garcia was a great volunteer, but her daughter has gone off to middle school, and she took on the big load of coordinating the yearbook. So we need somebody to do that. We also need crossing guards. I mean, we had a mom show up to be a crossing guard almost every day last year at the end of the day. That's terrific. If you show up 10 minutes early, you can wave a stop sign around. Let the front office know if you're interested in that. And also, of course, teachers need classroom parents. Like, we have our Halloween parties, we have our Valentine's Day parties. We need people to coordinate that, so those opportunities are available. So, speaking of which, you may have gone to one of Dr. Glass's community forums about the upcoming election. The school board is strongly considering a bond and or a mill levy to put on this year's ballot. And on the 23rd, which is next week, the Board of Education is going to decide what path to go, whether they pursue one, whether they pursue both, whether they pursue neither. So you can go to the board meeting and give your input. One thing that's definitely happening is this Amendment 73. That's actually a state ballot initiative. So it's called the Great Schools, Thriving Communities Initiative, and I'll talk a little bit about that. So what would the bond focus on? The bond would focus on capital needs. I mean, Fremont's actually in pretty good shape. I think you guys received this bulletin from me over the summer. Our facilities condition index is fair. It's better than a lot of schools, but a lot of schools are falling apart. We do have other needs. Some of you wondered, why don't we have more security cameras around? Why, how do we make this more secure? Well, this bond could well mean that we would get upgrades in security cameras. So really, really important. Something else, this Great Schools, Thriving Communities, like I said, that's a statewide initiative to boost funding for education. It would be a tax increase, but look at the benefit. I mean, of all the students that walk through the door, each of them would be bringing $1,600 additional dollars. I can't imagine what we would do with that money, but I know that we would improve the learning experience for every single student that does walk into the doors of Fremont. And so what would this tax initiative affect? It would affect anybody that makes over $150,000 per year, which is about 7% of the population of Colorado. So 93% would not see any tax increase at all. So that's something that's going to be on the ballot. My job is not to tell you what to vote for. My job is simply to tell you about information. So that's my purpose here. If you need more information on this, we definitely can talk. And then also strongly consider going to that board meeting on the 23rd. So that being said, PTA has a lot of possibilities for volunteering. Miranda Conley has been a great resource. She's the new PTA president. So our first PTA meeting is in the second week of September. We strongly suggest you coming out for that. They have a little competition going. The homeroom that has the most number of parents sign up for their PTA membership, the homeroom will get to slime me. I don't know what that means, but I'm getting slimed. Apparently I agreed to that in the spring. I don't remember agreeing to it, but hey, I'll play ball. So if you want your child's homeroom to slime me, sign up for PTA and get all the other parents to sign up for PTA as well. And I'm sure we'll film that. All right, so some upcoming events. So today when I'm filming this is the first day of school. We've got a lot going on with that. Kinder Getting to Know You days are both Thursday and Friday this week, Thursday and Friday of this week, and then Kinders kind of start on Monday. And then modified attendance is that second Friday of the year and the second Monday of the year. So sign up for those if you haven't done so. You can do that through a link on my weekly news or on the website, or teachers will be sending out information about that. And then the Harvest Festival Kinder Parade is on September the 8th. We sort of do like a big lap around Arvada and get that going. So that's pretty much my State of the School address. We're in really, really good shape as a school, and I'm excited for the year. Thank you for tuning in.